Eric Linask here at ITEXPO in Miami, Florida. In the studio with me now from NetSapiens, Anand Butch. Anand, great to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me again.
It's been, really, I've heard a lot of conversation about, a lot of talk about how good of a year 2014 was. And certainly if you look at some of the statistics and some of the reports, things like continued adoption of unified communications, adoption rates continue to grow, usage rates continue to grow. What did you see in 2014?
So to that point, Eric, we actually had a pretty stellar year in 2014, and what we saw was the same thing. We've had a pretty solid install base and a pretty loyal install base of service providers that are offering those services, and what we saw two things. We saw a lot of people actually now saying, okay, I need to get into the market because the competition is heating up. And then I also saw a number of our existing clients that had platforms that were all experiencing steady growth, but it seems like last year there was definitely a pickup in the amount of applications that they were deploying, and things were going beyond just basic telephony. So people were looking at more contact center type deployments, a lot more feature set savvy of things that people were looking to do just beyond basic business telephone services, unified messaging, more usage of web portals to manage their systems and things of that nature.
What do you think that's reflective of? What's driving that interest in these broader feature sets?
So I think it's a couple of different things. One, you're obviously seeing that the end user is getting that much more savvy. Communications costs continue to commoditize, and so what you're up against, and then plus you've got the growth of your proxy large providers like RingCentral and Packet8, and that's becoming more and more the norm, is to say I'm going to push all my stuff into the cloud. And so I think from a competitive perspective, I think people are realizing they need to compete with that. So the competitive providers that we service that compete with those folks are obviously having to keep up. So that's one thing. The second thing is, in general, people are getting smarter about the applications that they want, and the mobile side of the equation and the people that are running businesses, getting into the workforce, are that much more savvy. They're younger, and so applications and new things are coming much easier to them, and so there's not as much resistance to try new things. So that's the other thing.
So you mentioned a couple of times the next generation workforce, the younger, savvier people coming into the workforce. Are they making? Is the impact that there's a greater utilization of the tools that that businesses deploy for their communications? One of the problems has always been companies will deploy a unified communications solution, for instance, but nobody knows how to use it, or nobody uses it because they don't understand the benefits. They don't understand. In order for me to use something new, I've got to understand how it's going to make my job easier,
Sure.
or how it's going to make me more effective in
Sure.
my role. And for a long time, that sort of education wasn't happening. Is what you're talking about also reflective of the fact that there seems to be a more knowledgeable
Yes.
worker base that's starting to actually use these capabilities?
Yeah, definitely. I think the base is just that much more comfortable with what I call mixed device usage or multi-modes type of usage, whether you're on a smartphone or an iPad or a tablet or a laptop or a desktop. Some of these applications span across all of these devices, but even your day-to-day applications now are becoming that much more portable. And so that has definitely helped, and people are just, like I said, less resistive to technology as a whole. And some people are just not, they don't have a choice, right? Because everything is going in that direction.
Right.
And, whether they like it or not, they're just having to, face up to it. Seeing a lot more people migrate a lot of their services into the cloud, just basic stuff, right? Email, people moving to really kind of if you will, very brick and mortar businesses that for years have just done things a particular way are now looking at putting their email in the cloud and putting their CRMs into the cloud, and just basic business functions are just naturally doing that. So then communications is obviously a big part of that also.
And I think that mobility is also playing a huge role. And you mentioned the smartphones a moment ago, and just being able to have access to those communications resources wherever you are. Here in Florida, as opposed to needing to be in our home offices. Again, makes it so much more effective. But being able to have access everywhere, wherever I am, makes it a lot easier to start using a lot of those capabilities. If I know that it doesn't matter where I am,
that's right.
It makes me a more effective employee or colleague or partner or customer.
That's right. Yeah, and that's actually driving a lot of our development too, right? A lot of our clients who very much are kind of leading edge service providers are the ones that are serving that market need, and so what we hear from them is, hey, mobility. We want more functionality that you guys have today, and we want you to push it into other mediums. So one of the things that we're showing at the show here in Miami is the first glimpses, if you will, of our mobile applications. So we're definitely investing in the mobile world, and so we're pushing that. All of the applications that we offer today are getting driven into now being able to offer the same services over a mobile phone, if you will.
What are your thoughts around WebRTC? What kind of a role or potential role do you think that's going to play?
So, pretty disruptive. We are heavily involved in R&D on that side. We consider that as, like many people do, a pretty significant game changer. But once again, I think the proof will be in the pudding with respect to how it actually get utilized. We were at the WebRTC show last fall,
right?
And what we started seeing was more practical usage of WebRTC applications. And so our work, once again, is focused on taking our service providers who are regional service providers or business integrators or things of that nature, and really looking at what are the practical uses of WebRTC, what can be drivers for them so that they can increase the utility of the product. But it's a big component for us, and we see it as a game changer. But once again, we're taking a very practical approach to it and saying, okay, what are the real, what are the real tangible value that you can get from that?
Good. Well, it's certainly going to be exciting to see and fun to follow and see what does come out of all these conversations around WebRTC. Anand, thanks so much for being here at ITEXPO.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show.
Thanks again.